talk about ways out of the suffering. We say that the material world is a place of suffering where repeated birth and death are constantly taking place. From the highest to the lowest, from the worms to the monarchs, everyone is more or less suffering. Suffering from our own body, our own thoughts, our various relationships with others. It's just a place of suffering. So we know that we are the one who's really outside of suffering. The real self is outside of suffering. If you look closely at your situation, you'll see that there's the body and there's one who's watching the body, the knower of the body. So we are spiritual beings. We are the soul. For the soul, there's no suffering. But we'll tangle up. Somehow or other we've gotten tangled up into thinking we're this material body. As a result, we're subject to the pains and the other sufferings of the material body. So how do we get out of this suffering? You know, it's one thing to be caught, say if a person's fallen into quicksand. One person might come along and might have a lot of words in their vocabulary and might want to discuss how we fell into the quicksand. What's the nature of the quicksand, the texture of the quicksand, the depth of the quicksand, etc. But being in the quicksand, we want to hear how can we get out? Not only how can we get out, but are you helping me out of the quicksand? Are you giving me a rope or a helicopter or a branch of a tree or something to help me out of the quicksand? When we get out of this quicksand, then if we want to, we can discuss how we fell in it, why we fell in it, why the quicksand is here, the depth of the quicksand, all these other irrelevant things at this time. Because we see now that we are in the material world, more or less. Some of us are more out of it. It's a matter of degrees. Some of us are more or less in the material world. Some of us, and we know from experience, we've been deep in the material world and deep in the Maya, and we didn't even know it. Now at least we know there's Maya and there's a spiritual world. They're right here together in this moment, this nowness. Hell is now and heaven is now. They're both here right now in the material world. Psychologically, we're thinking that we're material beings. As a result, being material beings, we have birth, disease, old age, and death. And that is the nature of the material world. Everything about the material world, we say it's temporary. There's birth, there's growth, we give off byproducts, we get old, and we die. That's the nature of the life in the material world. As long as we think that we're the material body, and everything related to that material body is somehow or other related to us, then we're going to be suffering. So how to transcend the suffering? We say, first of all, just continue to tell ourselves that we're not the body. And look very closely, very discriminatively, and we'll see that we are not this body. We are the knower of the body. We're the one who knows the body. We know the body. We see the body. See? So relate to the fact that we're a spiritual being. We're the one who knows the body, the one who sees the body. We're not the body with the soul with the body. So we say, see yourself as spirit. Take a name of supreme being and call it out all the time. It's like being in an ocean of birth and death. Say we're in an ocean where there are blocks of ice, it's cold water, with no other boat can come out to get us. We need something from above to lower a rope down to us. So we say, so the holy name is that, excuse me, that link from above that can pull us up and out of the material world. So we get out of the material world, and gradually we find that we realize that we are separate from that material world. We're not of the material. We are not of the material world. We're separate from the material world. And we continue to live here in the spiritual world. So we have to be in it, but not of it. We have to be detached from the material world. And the more we see ourselves as spirit, we'll see that we are separate from that material world. And we continue to clean up, continue to purify our consciousness of those factors that can keep us over in the material world. Those factors that can keep us over in the material world, we say that's lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. And so the more we engage in remembering our Supreme by calling out the name, and we offer everything. We say in this context, offering, service, surrender, submission are synonymous. We do everything as an offering to our Supreme Being. By offering everything to our Supreme Being, we're remembering our Supreme Being. Remembering our Supreme Being is associating with our Supreme Being. Well, someone might say, well, Supreme Being does not exist. Well, we would ask the question, do you exist? Do you really think that you do not exist? I think if we ask ourselves very closely, we'll see that we cannot even imagine not existing. We can't even imagine not existing because the real self, it always exists. The real self is eternal. So to be in constant remembrance, constant association. So we say that our Supreme Being is infinite intelligence. It's infinite intelligence. We say omniscient. It is omniscient, eternally. So to be in association with our Supreme Being, who is the most pure, by virtue of this association, we become cleansed, we become purified of identifying with the material body and with all the other foibles connected with that material body. So this constant remembrance is the purification process. The more we remember, the more we are purified of those negative things, that lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy, the more we can see that we are not just part and partial of our Supreme Being, we are coming from our Supreme Being. Our Supreme Being envelops us. Our Supreme Being encompasses us. We're in our Supreme Being. Our Supreme Being is within us and beyond this material atmosphere. So association with our material being is what pulls us up and out of that material world of suffering, constant suffering, where repeated birth and death are taking place.
And we are responsible for our own suffering.
Yes, we are. It's easy for some of us to try and blame it on someone else. Others we'll see that are just instruments through which our own karma comes. Our karma means we're reaping what we have sown. So no matter where we are, what status we have, what our material situation is in the material world, we're reaping what we have sown. However, the more we engage in purification of our consciousness, getting all those pollutants out of our consciousness, the less we're liable to do negative things that will cause us to suffer in the future. Because karma is simply our own doing. What we've sown, we reap. See? So we want to go beyond even reaping and sowing. Reaping and sowing is a duality. We want to get back to our original position as being indivisible, undifferentiated, supreme, absolute existence. This is beyond all dualities, beyond hot and cold, rich and poor, up and down, coming and going, any kind of duality. The real self is absolute, in absolute existence. It does not fall victim to any kind of dualities or any kind of pollutants. So the purpose of life, the real purpose of our existence, is to get up and out of that material world of suffering and back into our original condition, which is free from all suffering. And it exists right here, right now, in this present moment.
Finding happiness. How do you find happiness? Can you find happiness?
Well, we don't have to find happiness really. We have to engage in purification. The nature of the self, the nature, some call it kundalini. It's beyond bliss. We call it ecstatic vibratory bliss. This is our nature. At that point, we're beyond knower, knowledge, knowing, and known. It's beyond Satchitananda. You know, we say Satchitananda, we're talking about that which is eternal, full of unlimited knowledge and bliss, Ananda, bliss. But at the original state, there's a certain level of being here, which we call Kundalini. It's beyond suffering, it's beyond birth and death and rebirth, it's beyond just bliss. From our little experience we've had of it, we say it's ecstatic, vibratory bliss. And now we can understand why those that we've read about and studied about, who've had a little taste of this, can renounce the material world. So the more we really experience the nature of the self, the easier it is to come on out of that material existence, to continue to clean up and stay detached from that material world and be more patient and more determined to advance spiritually. We're a spiritual being, our supreme being, that kundalini It's the spirit. It's beyond description. It's beyond, it's within and beyond everything. And this is why we want to be happy, because our real self is bliss. So we want to be happy. Happiness is the very lowest stage of bliss, because this stage, which we really, really are, is beyond misery and bliss. Because where we have misery, we have bliss, and vice versa. But the real self is beyond all those kind of dualities. And this is why we want to be happy. So the more we unfold our divine nature by constant remembrance, by our spiritual practice, the more we can experience the bliss of the self, the ecstatic, vibratory bliss of the self.